All right. MJ, you want to go ahead and kick us off?
No, I thought you were going to.
Okay, I will. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Tommy Dutcher. I'm the area sales manager with California Title. Welcome to our Monday Zoom and Learn. This Zoom and Learn we do every single Monday, same time, same Zoom link. And the only time that we do miss is when we have a holiday week. Those of you that I may not have an opportunity to meet yet, I would love to sit down with you to discuss your business, see how I may help you increase business over the next 12 months. My contact information to be reached is tommyfortitle.com. It's Tommy, the number 4 title.com. And my co-host, Mary Jane Morris with SoCal Escrow will finish introducing the rest of the team.
Hi, everybody. So happy to be with you all today. I still didn't turn off my phone. Sorry about that. So happy to be with you today. Sam and I are going to talk about a subject that's very passionate to us and that we feel like we're leading the way on, and we know many of you feel the same way. So we're going to be talking about defensible space today. I want to remind you that Southern California Escrow has VIP services at no charge, pre-escrows at no charge. There's no cancellation fees ever. And like Tommy, I hope that you'll reach out for situations large and small, everything from a grant deed, power of attorney, something like that, all the way up to a tangled escrow. That's is or is not my deal that you would just like some advice on. So I want to lay that out there for you first. And then, as I mentioned just a moment ago, we're going to start a new 1 minute or so, depending on how long he needs, but just a very brief moment. Andrew Wertheim. Andrew, I always say your last name wrong, and I feel terrible about it. Andrew Wertheim.
Wertheim,
Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you. Is a local estate attorney that has just been saving the day all across our territory here. And so we've asked him to be just a permanent part of our show because I think we should all have access to an attorney. And he's very good at referring, and he's very good at not charging you to just pick up the phone and find out what your situation is. So we think he's been a real asset. So Andrew, your inauguration is beginning, and what would you like to talk to us about today?
Thank you, MJ. And I'll put my cell phone in the chat. But yeah, so I do a lot of estate planning and business law. And I've been noticing a lot of my clients are coming to me with cryptocurrencies, either Bitcoin or Coinbase or some other cryptocurrency. And I just wanted to kind of get out to as many people as I can. I'm hearing from a lot of my colleagues that many of the main carriers of cryptocurrencies, it's so new, they haven't developed beneficiary designation forms. So there's no way to leave it to the next generation after you pass away. They're just relying on the probate court process and the full 1 to 3 year probate court process. So if you or if anyone you know is investing in cryptocurrencies, I want you to ask the company, do they have beneficiary designation forms? So you can have a primary or contingent beneficiary. And if not, you should probably switch companies. Or at least they will in a trust so that you choose who will receive them rather than the state of California choosing for you. So that is today's helpful tip. I'll put my cell phone in the chat, and Mary Jane's right. I love receiving phone calls. There will be never be a charge for that call. I just want to help.
I thank you very much for that. I asked him if he could teach us boomers who don't know a lot about crypto, and we may get into that sometime into the year, and NFTs, which apparently are going to be a thing as well. So without further ado, I would like to introduce my partner in crime, Samantha Hayes with One Stop TC. Her and I have been living and breathing, along with many of the TCs on this screen that I can see there, the new defensible space situation. And we knew it needed to be addressed again, and so we wanted to record again. Sam is staying very, very close to the rules and regs and the changes and all that. I'm having a different experience, so I thought we decided to split it up this way. I am seeing quite a bit of resistance to this, and so I wanted to make my own little speech about this. In my 40 years in real estate realtors have been called upon in other rule, through however you want to say it, whether we agreed or was forced on us or later understood it and was able to take up the cause. we've very often been asked to make a change for the better in our community. And one of the things that has been happening very often is the burning down of whole communities in California. It came to a point where something had to be done, and the law was formed. We were lucky that the California Association of Realtors was involved and stayed on top of it and was able to keep it from being point of sale, meaning you can close escrow without doing a defensible space. But somebody has to take responsibility for it. It is not something that neither party can walk away, that both parties can walk away from. So we are seeing whole brokerages saying, nope, not our problem, not getting involved with it. We are seeing whole brokerages tell all the way down to individual agents that they have already checked the little box and put it in your disclosures that the buyer was going to have to be responsible for that, which is not a complete negotiation and maybe was not accepted by the buyer unless it was done by accident. So we're having that happen. We're also having that some of the smaller departments, I think I mentioned to you previously that we had to teach the entire city of Santee down in San Diego what the rule was, where it came from, send it to them, show them a sample of the form, convince them. So we're seeing a lot of different agencies who aren't, and CAR warned us about this, and the NHD companies warned us about this. Steve Strickland, I can't think where he is right now because I think he just recently made a change, said that their company sat down and actually tried to label all 400 and some odd agencies with contact information. And they could tell just by the phone calls that they made that they were not going to be able to create a real database that you could count on. And what they were able to gather has changed since. Even the original CAL FIRE link that I was using has changed to individual counties. San Diego has 10, 12, 20 different managing fire agencies. So they don't even have just one single link. They've got a bunch down there as well. So I wanted to tell you from my heart to yours that this work that we're doing is very important. This law is very important. And then I'm going to let Sam run away with the how, where, when, and why. But I wanted to take a chance to say that to encourage you to embrace it and get used to it. And by the way, about 98% of our inspections, especially on structures, which is what this is for, are coming back clear as far as in the middle of neighborhoods and things, as far as anything that they're not in any less danger being in that neighborhood, but they don't have anything on their property at that moment. So it hasn't been as painful. We've been seeing some of the fees, not seeing some of the fees on the other parts. So this is completely an evolving situation and is going to have to take some love and patience with our clients to get them where we want them to be. So I will do my best to sit quietly while Sam walks us through it, but I've asked Andrew too, because there's a lot of liability here, to keep his ears open for things that sound dangerous to him. And of course, Tommy, we don't thank you enough for running this show for us every week and keeping it recorded and all that. So everybody feel free to put your questions in the chat and we will do our very best to get them answered. Without further ado, may I please introduce Samantha Hayes.
Hey, everybody. I'm going to make Andrew, Mary Jane, and Tommy very happy and start off with whatever I am sharing today is what I've done of my own research. Please verify all with your broker of record, verify all with that property. The goal here is to share the information and do your own due diligence. So I'm getting that out of the way right off the bat, so we're all clear with everyone. Let me share my screen with you. Go ahead and get this going. Okay, so we are here to talk about the home hardening and defensible space. This came about as AB 38, which is a state bill that was originally started in 2018 and went into effect. I think it officially was signed 2019 and goes till 2025 right now, the way it's set up from the research I did this morning. This is a preventative in nature type of bill. I want to get my stuff out of the way, saying thank you as always to both Tommy and MJ for having me. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk to you. And why am I the one talking to you? I've been a TC for almost 19 years, done over 6,500 transactions. I am part of one of the original TC groups here in San Diego that has gone national. And my focus has always been on educating other TCs and agents as well. I'm a CAR certified TC, forms trainer, wind forms trainer, realtor, And for all around forms nerd, I love this stuff. I will talk about this stuff till I'm blue in the face anytime. So like everyone else here, go ahead, TCs, agents, whatever, give me a call anytime. I will happily chat about this and get you to the right space or redirect you and want to learn about it myself. So starting off with AB 38, when it went into law, let's see, it's been different phases. As we know, this form has evolved because the law changed last July when it added on with defensible space. Many of these portions have already been in place for years and years and years. Homeowners are supposed to keep a certain amount of zone area cleared from their property. That's been going on for a long time. This just really became hardcore. Let's put it into effect. Let's start making things accessible and get information out to the public. The form that was created by CAR to meet the needs of the law, or excuse me, the civil code, I should say, because it's state law. What it is that this is the same civil code as TDS. So the thing that becomes the issue is when you don't have this disclosed, all these people that are fighting to not disclose, you're falling under civil code, same as TDS. And I don't think everybody understands that. And as MJ said, this is not going to usually be a make or break for a lot of things. Most people are keeping their homes up this way because of what's happened for the fires and everything in the past few years, especially those of us that live here in California and went through at least the San Diego 7 and 2011 big giant fires. We know we live in a tinderbox. You know you have to clean your house, and sometimes it's even insurance based. The form itself can be used 3 different ways. It can be an addendum to the contract, especially if you know as a buyer's agent you're going and selling into an area where you've got extra vegetation, forestry. That's going to be more up in your like San Bernardino areas. If you're on canyons, if you know there's been fire activity previously, it's worth discussing. It can just be a disclosure. You can go ahead and disclose it and just put it in to the forms. It's for any property that's built prior to 2010. That's the home hardening portion. But defensible space is any property for both of them that's in the high, very high. Fun fact, the law changed in January of this year to include moderate. Unfortunately, the form itself has not caught up to moderate. The maps have not caught up to moderate. COVID's done a little bit of a delay on everything. In fact, I just watched a presentation from Cal Fire that was from September of last year, and they don't expect the maps to be current till this September. So there's staffing issues involved. There's being ready for this. I don't think the timing worked out the way everybody was expecting it to. So there is even still scramble on the back end regarding this. You also can make it an advisory. And with the advisory, the benefit of that is you disclose the information. You may not know for sure. It's never going to hurt. It definitely brings an awareness to the clients. It's definitely something you want to go ahead and make sure that everybody's seen. But again, verify with the broker of record how they want to maintain their file. So when you go through the form line by line, it breaks down to the beginning, explains the difference between home hardening is specifically regarding the structure, where defensible space is also regarding the vegetation around the structure. This does not apply to land. And right now it has a section where you can fill out the boxes to say what you know that may be a potential. If you have some open, very large screened areas where embers can fly in, if you know you have different types of roofing materials, those type of things, you can disclose if the seller knows. A lot of people don't know. The goal is by 2025 that this will actually be something that sellers will need to disclose and have an awareness, as well as, I believe it's the State Fire Marshal and Forest Management Task Force are supposed to come up with low cost options that sellers are going to be able to do to make these changes to the properties and disclose. In section 2B is where you can mark the box to make sure that, or 2B and makes an advisory. And then 3B, those are the boxes I was just talking about if there's sparks going in, if there's anything with the roof, those are all voluntary disclosures. Then it goes through to say if their seller may already have the report. Are they providing the report? It becomes a buyer's responsibility. The buyer will have this completed within 1 year after close. The seller can, up to 6 months prior to the sale, go ahead and obtain some of these reports, and you can contact the local area, be it fire, or if it's local San Diego County, Riverside County, San Bernardino County, to work on this. If the seller actually has a final inspection report, some people do, you'll go ahead and provide it. Now, this is where it gets into kind of a gray area from everything that I've been reading up on and watching some other videos and trainings. There's some issues between CAL FIRE and local areas and who's got the responsibility. And it defaults to whoever's got the strongest rules wins. So right now there's 3 zones. You have 0 zone, which is right up to the property. You've got zone 1, which is 50 feet from the property in San Diego only. Everywhere else it's 30 feet. So San Diego wants you to clear out another 20 feet from your property, but that's San Diego specific. And this is one of the challenges they're running into, is everybody's going to have to be doing their own diligence and research on each property, which means where does the agent overstep? Where is it seller responsibility? That's kind of the gray area that's still getting figured out. And you've got to talk to your own legal and your own broker about your situation. Being that you may sell in an area a lot and you know that there's been fire on one of your other properties, you can almost guarantee that you're going to have to do it on the next one. So that's also where your education and knowledge of where you're selling comes into play. So this is my house, or where my house is located. And that's my canyon before last summer when we didn't clear it out. So I wanted to show that I am technically not in a high fire zone, but because I live on a canyon, and those are photos of our fabulous backyard, that we actually could be in an area where, even though we're not designated high fire, we still should probably disclose high fire because of the proximity of being right on a canyon mouth and the responsibility of that. So you can better negotiate for your client when you take a look at things and work on these, but you can't make the call for them. It is redirected multiple times that the natural hazard reports are where we should look for designation of high fire zone. They also are pushing that back to CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE then pushes it back to state. So this is going to be one of those things that are still getting sorted out. Okay. Oops, don't want that. Sorry, wrong click. So that map is the high fire severity zone viewer that you can look at. You can go pull up the properties. Right now, to meet the moderate, what I've been doing is presenting it saying, here's what the map says. Please verify all. Everybody do their own diligence. This address for the high fire severity zone viewer is included in the statewide buyer and seller advisory as something to look up on page 5. Now, how is this affecting all of us? Well, as MJ said, there's so many different counties in the state. There's so many then sub areas. You've got cities within the counties and their regulations. And a perfect example is right now, the city of Escondido has a point of sale requirement that to sell the property, you were supposed to go ahead and have their report done and everything else. Reviewing everything from CAR, it's not technically a point of sale responsibility because it is not holding up the recording of the property, but it is supposed to be done. It's the enforcement issue that's one of the things that's up for discussion. Is it always best to err on the side of caution? And if you're aware of it, have it handled? Of course it is. But right now, it's one of those things where this is just such a newer law that hasn't been as big a priority before. It's coming into play more and more. So it's going to be something about learning. And I'm a fan of conservative. I'd rather disclose to you that there's a potential issue coming up versus not giving any information at all.
I was going to interrupt you there for a
Go
second.
ahead.
The very first class we all took from CAR from this, they specifically said because there is no precedence for this, there are no lawsuits that we can look out to see how it washed out. And they are recommending, I want to make sure we're clear on this, that if there's any possibility that your seller is supposed to do this, to do it now, because you will avoid it your deal popping back up a year out and new liability coming. And at that point, have the weeds grown another 6 inches? And are the first 6 inches belong to the seller and the second 6 inches belong to the buyer? How do we work out the cost if it turns out to be a big fix? Like I said, many of these aren't in traditional neighborhoods, but it will be somewhere. So I just want to mention that CAR definitely has warned you that there is no precedence, and that one of us will be the lucky winner of the lawsuit.
Well, it's also, as you and I have talked about, is knowing the type of property. I mean, if you're selling out in the East County where you're getting acreage along with the structure, there's an awareness out there, and it's making sure that you're checking in with, even this is on condos, but you may have the HOA taking responsibility for it and doing the clearing as part of your HOA fees. So it's going to take a little bit of research and diligence and just paying attention to where you're selling and what type of property you're selling.
I wanted to throw, I should have had my insurance agent come on, but as I've been teaching the new RPA, I've had several insurance agents in, and another tip you need to know is that when the buyer signs his application for his fire insurance, he is saying that the fire inspection has already been done and that there are 0 defensible space issues out there. Therefore, if the house burns down over what turns out to be a defensible space issue, yours, mine, ours, whoever's, it may not be covered by your fire insurance. So please know that the day they move in, they have already said this work is done.
Well, that's a perfect segue into why the WDFA or FDA, or the Wildfire Disclosure Advisory, whatever they did the letters about. One of the huge parts of why that came about was about being able to obtain insurance and the issues of high fire, or even if you're not in the same county. I remember, I've been doing this that long, that when we had properties in escrow during 2011, and after the fires were over, I had to fight with insurance companies because they decided San Diego County that something that was down here by my house in Kensington was the same as a place up in Vista where the fires had actually been adjacent to, and having to explain the difference in the mileage and how the county is just so large. So that's one of the things why that form should be on every single one of your properties, in not even if it's in high fire, but because that one discloses about there's a potential for the smell of smoke, you could have allergy issues. Every single one of these forms that we have are all created to reduce litigation. They're a result of something's happened. Something's been a problem. This is why we're telling you about it, because we don't want it to keep being a problem. And I understand that forms are overwhelming and people are like, I don't want to deal with it. And I get that. But all of these are because they're trying to mitigate or prevent. And if we can make sure we're presenting it in that light to our clients, that this is showing that you are taking preventative measures and that you've taken your due diligence steps, doesn't mean everything's perfect. It doesn't mean you're not going to have any risk, but it helps show that you have actively taken steps to inform a consumer. So that's kind of a mindset to think about. It's like I like to tell people, your disclosures are not your marketing material. These are your good, bad, and ugly. I want to know the story. This is the story of your property. And this is one of the pieces that helps you tell that story.
This is also in your statutories on your new RPA. And once in a while, we bump into an old codger like myself, maybe a little older now, that doesn't want to do anything but the statutories. So, you know, a lot of our statutories, smoke, water, and lead, have been merged in other places for our convenience. Megan's Law, that type of thing, have been merged in. So we don't think of them as something we print or, you know, prepare as often because we know that there are other places, but this is a statutory. So I have to agree with Sam that this should be asked and answered on it should be in every file, even as an advisory, because you do need to show that you are dealing with the statutories.
So this would be a good segue into the differences and understanding as well between home hardening and defensible space, right? Because a lot of the agents are getting confused that home hardening is for a property of 2010 is that cutoff, right? But that doesn't correlate to defensible space.
Well, just as the water heater smoke detector form covered two things in one, this is the same situation where they've combined things together. And so that's why you've got to break it out that the way I think of it in my head that's helping me, home hardening is the home. That's the structure. That is the actual structure. Those are if you've got the flyaway vent things, and I'd thrown let me go ahead and pull this over here. So if you looking at the form, right here, it starts, it's all the fun stuff, blah, 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 residential properties constructed, because this is the only one that calls construction in the age. The reason it's before 2010 is because the building code changed in 2010.
Correct.
That's the only reason for that number. Defensible space goes into zones. And so when you're going down, it talks about severity zone, natural hazard zones, where to look up for it and everything else. So with home hardening, you're talking about actual things you can do to the structure. Regarding, do you have these eave issues, the roof ventilation, the roof covering, combustible landscaping or materials, 5 feet of the home. they're talking about that's the decks, that's that chipped wood that they used to, that we thought was great for mulching. They don't want that nearby anymore. If you're stopping birds from coming in, your rain gutters that don't have the combustible or the metal, because you can get something to fly in. Embers can fly, I believe, up to a mile. And, it gets crunchy enough and dry enough and the Santa Ana winds get kicking. It's just science. It's going to cause a fire. Things are going to happen.
I want to tell you that just for fun, just to lighten it up a little bit, my husband's recliner needs to be replaced and he wants to put it on our patio and asked me for reasons why he could not put it on the patio besides it's ugly. I said, well, let me teach you about home hardening.
Yeah, I wanted to bring this up because I think a lot of agents may feel that, when they hit the beginning of this form and they see, is the property built before or after 2010? It's almost like, oh, well, it was after, so the rest of it doesn't apply. But that's not the case.
Well, and then you have, they brought it up at San Diego specific. So part of what's happened with the moderate being one of the zones, they now are coming into 0 zone. Right now, 1 to 2 is where they consider high fire, but they're actually considering zone 0, which is right up on the structure. And so the zone 1 is 30 feet away. You only have to clear 30 feet for all the other counties. San Diego, you've got to clear 50 feet. And so if you're following one set of rules, but not researching your local set of rules, you could miss it. And that's part of the challenge Cal Fire is having because they can't make a blanket statement for everything. So they have to defer whoever has the most restrictive laws, codes, whatever, that's what you go with. So whoever who's got the toughest one, the one you want to ignore, that's the one you got to actually deal with. Let's see. And there's really not, it's kind of just basic like that. It's really, this is what we're at. This is the codes and this is what you need. Is the house in high fire, very high fire, boom, boom, boom. Now, one thing I know I've run into, San Diego, the TCs typically order the NHD. I know other counties, the NHD order gets ordered with escrow. But what I've been trying to educate escrow officers about, last July, when all this changed, when the defensible space came into play, the listing agreement was changed stating the seller would be responsible for ordering the natural hazard during the listing period so that you can answer these questions and being prepared for this. That's creating a whole side problem where buyer's agents are writing into the contract one NHD. We already have another NHD on file because that's what we have. Then escrow is ordering this other NHD, and then we have 2 NHDs going on. So there's little offshoots of, again, how the lack of communication on this can be causing problems. So you definitely want to get ahead of that. Let people know when you're opening escrow. I know it's not as big an issue for us down here, but hey, we've already got the NHD on file, or if you're calling and going to write up an offer, ask the agent if they already have ordered the NHD. They're little silly things, but it does hold up. It's some of the stumbling blocks and some of the stuff that takes time out of our days.
While it's on your screen, I want to point out that B2 is the box that some listing agents are just marking and including with the disclosure, meaning they did not negotiate this. They simply passed the responsibility on. I've had several phone calls where the agent said, when I asked about the high fire, because I could see it was in high fire, they said, it's not our problem. We've already passed it to you. We've already put it on this form that it's going to be your problem. And this brings me to another point. Only a seller can order, only the seller side can order a inspection, a government inspection on the property.
That's for the RPA.
This is if a buyer orders a home, the inspection and creates trouble for the seller and is not negotiated and then eventually has to fail out of this escrow, they have damaged the seller. It's the equivalent of calling the code violation on your neighbor, where all of a sudden they have trouble that they didn't order. So that's the other problem. It needs to be ordered on the listing side. This is a very important piece of it. Now, I have to tell you, when we were very first getting started, I was ordering for both sides just to help people get going. So I think this is a good time to say that as much as we know already, it's an evolving situation because of the number of moving parts. Another quick example I want to give you was within 30 days of this second piece coming out, the Defensible Space, Carr had to hustle over with a couple of their attorneys over to CAL FIRE to explain to them what point of sale meant, because CAL FIRE does not agree. They consider this point of sale. Somebody may tell you that as far as they're concerned, it's a statutory and it needs to be done. And so Carr had to go over and explain to them and settle it down, and they did finally understand what the difference is between point of sale and not. But it's frustrating for all of us. It's definitely evolving. I just once again want to repeat how important I think it is once we get the hang of it. And thanks for letting me interrupt you there, Sam.
Well, real quick, while you're on that, you specified that the seller has to obtain the inspection, but yet in the Carr form it gives the option to say buyer shall obtain documentation. Is Carr going to update these forms, or
Up to 1 year
After the buyer assumes the responsibility of obtaining the documentation after.
For the escrow. And that's where Carr feels like in most neighborhoods, you're not going to have a giant kickback of some problem. But, you know, in our area, we have Duluth, we have lots of areas with land in and around it that are going to be part of the problem here. So, yes, and we are expecting form revisions. And for another reason, I'm sorry, one more time, Sam, when, like I made notes that I wanted to make sure we didn't miss.
Good.
In January this year, civil penalties begin for the sellers or the homeowners who are later found out to be the source of a defensible space fire. Similar to the people that are being held liable for having their gender reveal party fireworks start that giant fire up north that burnt down Paradise, California, I think. So civil penalties have already begun in January, and the SDAR attorneys are saying that there are criminal penalties coming in July as well. So you not only are you going to lose everything you own and be bankrupt, but you'll have a chance to get handcuffed as well as a homeowner for not keeping your neighbors and your home safe from known risks.
Reality is we're in a drought. We're still we're in what, 8 years into a drought, and it doesn't look like it's getting any better. And reality is
California is always going to be in a drought.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. This is not going to change for the better. We're not suddenly, Noah's not telling us to build an ark, guys. So this is reality. The world is changing. Insurance companies are always going to look for an out. They don't want to pay. That's the whole point. So if you can take any steps to mitigate that and show that you did your due diligence, you've got the documentation to support it, that's always going to be a helpful thing. I mean, no, there's no way you can ever totally mitigate risk. And no, we really have to be careful about who's supposed to order what. And even as agents stepping in to order it can be a liability. They don't, going through all the notes on Carr from Carr Legal, they do not recommend that you rely on the map. I will provide you the map and show you what website I got the map from. I will have you acknowledge this has been provided. I'm not going to say whether or not it's high fire or not. Here's what I saw. Here's what we've got. You need to move forward. You need to do your own due diligence, buyer. You need to make sure you know what you're doing. And remember, buyer's agents are the ones that some of this falls on, of helping your clients know if this is, and what did Mike Spielberg tell me? I will not investigate this. I cannot investigate this. If this is of importance to you, you must investigate this. And it's one of the things we want to take care of our clients so much. And that's an amazing part about being in our industry and getting to provide that assistance. There's a line. And unless you're an expert in something, you need to be careful about crossing that line. And we just got to remember that sometimes you got to stay in your lane.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, are there any major questions or anything? Because I think I'm just going to keep beating a dead horse here about like civil code. Go look in the backyard.
Let's do this from an agent perspective, right?
Okay.
Because, I think there's still going to be a lot of question from, even to, regardless how new or how veteran an agent is. Let's say that the NHD comes back and you are in a high fire zone, right?
Right.
Where can they go to find the data? Who can they contact if they're in a rural area where they are in a canyon or what have you, and they think they may or may not need to have inspection done or what have you, you know, where the resources or what resources do you have that they can go to check this for, say, Riverside and San Diego counties?
So the statewide buyer and seller advisory addresses this. I believe it's on page 15, where it gives a website link to CAL FIRE. CAL FIRE then breaks it down where you can go county by county. And they even have a link to say what different municipalities have, what different codes in place. What's interesting is San Diego is not on there. I checked. There is no link for anything about San Diego, even though we have the extra 50, we have the 50 feet versus the 30 feet. It's under, everything is under provision, update, pick a word at this point. So you do have direction within the forms that we have. You have your natural hazard, which is what you're directed to take a look at. If you go to Car Legal, they refer you back to check your NHD. They do refer you to CAL FIRE, but again, they don't want you to count on CAL FIRE because of what's going on. And part of why the NHD companies exist is to be that neutral third party that's pulling this information. That's why they carry their coverage in the back of their books. So we're talking many, many layers of Tetris here.
Mm-hmm. So is there a standard website for CAL FIRE where you could go and plug an address in and it will populate for you? Do you know or not?
Yes, that's the one that's on, hold on, where did my thing go? I think I closed it.
Was that the one that was on your slide?
Yeah, and I can
Okay.
get that back. Let me stop screen sharing
So
on this one.
what I'll do is I'll say that in the comment section of this video, or below this video in the comments and stuff, I will place that link as well, right?
And I'll
So
send you- I
if
can
you
send
find
you
the
the
video
slide.
online on YouTube, you're going to be able to find the link for the CAL FIRE below.
Give me 1 second. I'll pull out the slide and make it
When
a,
I've been
make it a
at,
graph.
when I've been rushing and needing to look it up, I've done as easy as defensible space inspections and had it come up on Google. I have just done calfire.org and had them come up. And I've noticed that the website that they printed in the form that Sam's talking about has a easily rememberable ready for wildfire .org as well.
Well, and I'm going to throw a couple in there really quick too, so you have them. So it's the calfire.gov/dspace is one of the ones that they recommend. So I'll put that in there. And then that has the maps on it and the viewer as well.
Okay, so for the viewers, that was basically www.fire.ca.gov/dspace, and that will take you to that website.
Right. And again, as MJ said, all you have to do is Google CAL FIRE home hardening or even CAL FIRE, but just home hardening comes up.
This is an interesting spot that I was just going to slip in. So once you get there, you have to be able to use their little map. And it's not super user friendly. It's not hard, but on the far left side, they have a little pair of binoculars. If you click on the binoculars, it allows you to put in an address, hard right. And then you can put it in and it will locate the property for you without an NHD report. And so I just want to mention that. So even when I'm having my sellers, even when I'm recommending the seller order it, I am getting phone calls back that they can't make their way through the website, and the agent's having to get involved anyway. So maybe I'll send a note up to CAR about somehow authorizing us to order on seller's behalf, but or does it have that now?
Well, the agent can order. I mean, you can take a look because you're ordering the NHD for them. So that's as far as then they're supposed to run with it from that. I don't foresee them because of the potential for civil and criminal charges, as you and I've discussed. Like San Diego goes into, if you have not done after you've been served notices, you've now got a misdemeanor. And I mean, that's after you've had 3 months of warning and been charged $5,000. So that's part of where I don't foresee them greenlighting that agents should be the ones ordering it because of that potential liability issue there.
We had a couple of questions here. One is who orders annual or biannual inspections? CAL FIRE routinely sends out letters to the areas and the property owners that they know. Those are the letters that have been getting ignored for years by homeowners without any penalty whatsoever, especially landowners landowners specifically. And so that inspection, you could still order the way we've showed you how to do it. If you're not in escrow and you truly want to find out if your property, especially if it's in this condition, you can still order that way, even though you're not in escrow, because you're the homeowner, you can order it. The second question is for Sam. It says, Sam, can you explain the process you do for your agents on the listing side and what your reaction to what you get as a buying side? What are you having them routinely sign?
So I'm going to tell you what I do for my agents. It always is going to defer to whatever the broker of record wants. So I'm going to put that out there ahead of time. What I do is I actually have a form letter that's ready to go. I will take a screenshot of the map and send it to my clients. When I get the listing, my goal is I get the listing, we order the NHD, that comes back, I'll be like, okay, both of these say they're high fire, please contact your local, and this map says it's in state, this one says it's in local, please contact and advise what's required. These two things have come up as a flag. This is the civil code, it's the AB 38. Please do your research and advise how you want to move forward. And typically we've gotten so far I've had a couple of inspections go through, it's been cake, no big deal. Did it ahead of time, no drama. Had one that we didn't find out till we were in escrow, no problem. On the buy side, I do the same thing where if it says no high fire. Right now, most of them I'm getting are the FHDS. Typically, CAR does not recommend marking the boxes unless you've negotiated those sections where MJ was saying this makes it buyer responsibility or saying you have a report on file. If you don't have any of those, by not marking the box, it already defers that the buyer will accept responsibility. So those reports and everything on there, it is set up for the buyer to be stuck with this responsibility as the way CAR has it in the documents. Do I feel that we're covered? No, I'm a little, obviously that's why I'm nerding out about this. I'm concerned, as MJ said, I do not want to become the poster child of a file that's going to have a problem. I do include if there is, I've been including the maps now that we've got the moderate being also required per the law, but it's not in the NHD, it's not in the forms. So, and I just included it, have everybody initial it so that it's been documented, and then it's a broker agent call of what they require. All I can do is provide the information. And for the other question, no, it's not on bare land. Right now, the AB 38 is about home hardening, and defensible space is only for single 1 to 4 manufactured homes and condos. However, there are other requirements for that city, county, what municipality you're in that will have about defensible space. This has already existed for a long time. It just hasn't been brought up to this level before.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of remembering back to the presentation that we had originally on home hardening defensible space, and vacant land came up quite often. And my recall from that was that the recommendation was that you just want to ensure that there hasn't been any documentation sent to the seller mandating that they, take care of any removal of heavy brush or fire hazards, etc. And, in your disclosures, it asks that anyway. So, you're kind of covered there.
I want to deal with a few of these questions. Some people are asking what happens if they have routinely been doing their defensible space inspections. This would fall under the written reports when we ask them in their TDS and SPQ and their listing agreement. If they're in possession of any written reports regarding this property, they may be. The one thing in our industry is we often get the secret of how good people keep paper and don't keep paper. I have investors who don't have a single copy of their leases and no bills and the whole, I'm sure Andrew runs into this from time to time, bad record keeping. But that would fall under written reports that already exist, and you could certainly pass them on. And I don't know the exact answer. I assume if it's been done within a year, that you could use it again. But, again, like we told you, because it's evolving.
It's 6 months. 6 months is what you can do 6 months prior to sale.
We did discover that bare land, it does not, and I want to take responsibility for that, because in my first class, we did talk about bare land, because I was dealing with more bare land situations where the defensible space had become an issue and CAL FIRE went and cleared them. And so I linked the two in my mind, but bare land is exempt from, if this is for structures. And I hate to say ignore something, but the home hardening is going to become a Megan's Law NHD kind of piece of it. I don't think it's anywhere near as bust.
Well, it's going to become specific to the, you're going to have to disclose in 2025 specifically. So it's going to be more like an
My
SPQ.
point is that most people haven't done much. They haven't gone around and done the wire to their, fixed up the wire in their garage so that an ember can't get in, and they don't know if their eaves are good. I mean, it's true that we see a lot less wood roofs, whatever that's called. I can't think of it this image, the wood shingle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we're, and obviously the newer the home, the less we're gonna see that, but, and then, so no, not on bare land do you have to do this.
There was another question in there. It says, I have an investor I work with that on their counter offer to the buyer, they write in, the home is located in a high fire severity zone. The buyer is responsible for all compliance associated with the state fire defensible space law and any relevant local ordinances. See, I believe it's supposed to be NHD disclosure and addendum. Does this cover does this cover and negotiate for the buyer to be responsible, or is there something else? Is this all they need to be considered negotiating in the contract?
I'm a fan of belt and suspenders. We've got a form for a reason. So I would go ahead. It's not going to hurt if they're doing a blanket form anyways. Mark the box each time going buyer's responsible, buyer's responsible. Then you've told them more than once. So if it comes back, well, we missed it in the contract. Great. We also told you here, we told you here, I'm a big fan of repetition and overkill of communication.
Yeah. Over document.
Yeah. Huge fan of that.
Lots of people ask me about that, whether when somebody has signed and then gets removed from the contract or something, that over disclosure never hurts us. It's under disclosure.
So there was another question in the chat that said, so I have a listing coming up in Anza, which for those who don't know where Anza is, it is very much in a rural mountainy area that is known it is known that is going to be in a high fire zone. I need to make sure that sellers have an inspection done by the fire department to make sure they have the appropriate fire clearance done that was recommended prior to selling, ?
Yeah.
So she's asking, does she have to have that done? Then it says, I believe they've had it done, but just wanted to make sure I'm understanding correctly.
Being prepared for your listing is not going to hurt at all. It's good for 6 months prior to, it's going to be asked for. It's typically not at a cost. I think it's definitely, it will let you better negotiate. You can mitigate that issue coming up right away. I'd get it done. I don't see where the harm is, especially if they've already had it done. They're probably gonna come back out and check the box. They did the ones that I had done in the ones that were done on the files I was working on in Alpine. They didn't even have to be home. The fire department, they could get in the gate. They walked around the property, good to go. It's not as painful as it sounds. If you think it's going to be painful, that's probably because it is, because if you're having to take a machete to get to the backyard of your client's property, there might be a problem. If the tree is touching the house and the neighbor and it's a mess, there might be a problem, but that's also not going to be great for selling it anyway. So we're not going to.
Most people are going to upkeep their property to an extent that it's safe. And, you have to remember is if you're sitting on 2 acres, it's not that you have to remedy all 2 acres.
Right.
You have to remedy a certain amount of feet from the structure. Now, you also have to remedy a certain amount of feet from any other structures. So if you have a neighbor that has a house by the backside of your 2-acre lot, then you may be, asked to clear a certain amount of feet from that section as well, because it's close to a structure. But it's not that you have to clear the entire, 2, 5, 10 acres.
Getting a question for you, Sam, how you're dealing with the DocuSign options to, radio boxes and, how are you setting your docs up for them to make a choice?
I'm having them answered in Glide as much as possible so that it's addressed there before we go into DocuSign, because that lets them review it. If there's an issue or something comes up, I'll kick it back and say, you guys tell me what you want to do. This is not something we should be making a call on unless we know for sure, like, if I know it's at the beach, I will probably mark the box for them, you know, so when they're that this is not a high fire, because it is on the beach, that's a known thing. And that's only when I have an older seller who I've already gone 3 rounds with, and we've had email communication to confirm it. And I'll include the email with that as well. So typically, this is, as always, we never touch disclosures. We do not complete disclosures. Nobody completes disclosures but the seller. So I'm putting that out there to be sure. But it's one of those things where it's just, you know, some of it comes to administration and back and forth communication and showing that you've got it documented. This is what you were told, and you're just assisting with getting it done.
I want to remind you that if they're TDS exempt, which means we don't, the signer is not going to be responsible for the property. They have authority to sell. This is kind of down Andrew's line of thinking here, that they're going to be TDS exempt. If they're TDS exempt for a legitimate reason, they're also exempt from this at this time, from having to have the inspection at this time, because there is no seller officially. There's an authorized party who's doing the work of the seller.
Right.
They're not, did I say that correctly? Andy, that they're an authorized party doing the work. Of the seller. We are getting close now to the end of the hour. I want to remind you all that we stay online after we stop the recording. We do take questions, individual situations, for as long as you guys want to stay on after, but I want to thank you all for being here. Sam, did you have any closing thoughts for me, or Andrew, Tommy?
Thanks for being here again. Always please verify everything with the broker of record. My phone number is, I'll put it in the chat, 619-993-7264. I've seen a lot of crazy in my day, so I'm happy to chat with you, but I'm always going to refer you back to verify with broker of record.
And we're going to
Thanks for having me.
we're going to circle back as the forms in as this situation. We could feel it heating up. I'm making a little pun there. We could feel it heating up out there, and so we knew this conversation had to be had. We've had it once. We'll have it again. We will circle back when. That's one of the things why we don't plan so far out our whole year of training, because we want to stay really close to what's happening out there. I'm going to let
before we lose everybody, because we still have over 60 still on. Next week's training topic is
Sam is teaching us.
Yeah, I got all of January. New laws. New laws. So we'll be revisiting this because of the change to the FHDS with going to moderate. Then it's a lot of things about actually HOAs that I've been reading up on. So it's not as much major. I think there's one other one. So it's definitely, mine are a little bit more short and sweet than MJ's. I tend to get just kind of get to the bullet point topics.
We're going to do new laws next week, which normally is something we do right at the beginning of the year, but the new RPA, there was just no way of getting to it. And then the week after that, which is February 7th, we have our solar class up for you, Sam. I will walk you through very clearly how to handle your solars and when escrow helps you and when they cannot help you. I wanted to mention, for those of us who are in the business, the new sample forms book is finally out. It does have the new contract and all the new forms. Finally, it showed up out of the blue over this last few days. So if you want everything in one place, that's available on CAR for about $125. I live and breathe it. When you guys call me and ask me to fill out something, I flip right to the page and walk step by step right through. So I want to let you guys know that was out there. And then Tommy, I think we are ready to stop the recording and take questions or concerns.
Yeah, and we'll see you guys all next week.